Captain Marcus Vale stood at the observation deck of the UES Nightfall, watching as 12 different alien vessels approached through the void of space. Each ship represented a different species, and together they formed the most significant gathering the galaxy had seen in over a century. The reason for their assembly was floating right beneath his feet, the most controversial warship humanity had ever built. The Nightfall stretched for 15 kilometers, its dark hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. To most observers, it looked like a piece of space itself had been carved into the shape of a vessel. But Captain Vale knew the truth. This ship wasn't just dark, it was hungry for the very fabric of reality. "Captain," called Lieutenant James Morrison from the communication station, "we're receiving priority transmissions from the Galactic Assembly. They're requesting immediate boarding access under emergency protocols." Vale nodded slowly. He had expected this day would come. 3 months ago, the Nightfall had encountered a pirate fleet near the Outer Rim colonies. In less than 30 seconds, that fleet had simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not scattered, erased from the universe as if they had never been born. The first alien delegation to board was led by High Chancellor Vorthak of the Zentari Empire. The reptilian being moved with careful precision, his scaled hands gripping a data pad that contained what Vale assumed were charges against humanity. Behind him walked representatives from the Aquarian depths, the crystalline hegemony, and 9 other major civilizations. "Captain Vale," Vorthak spoke through his translation device, his voice carrying undertones of both fear and anger. "The Galactic Assembly has convened an emergency tribunal. Your vessel stands accused of violating the Universal Weapons Accords, the Reality Preservation Treaty, and the Existential Safety Protocols." Vale had studied these laws extensively. Most had been written after ancient wars that had nearly destroyed entire sectors of the galaxy. The problem was simple. Humanity had never signed these treaties. They had been written long before Earth had achieved faster-than-light travel, when humans were still considered a primitive species unworthy of inclusion in galactic politics. "With respect, Chancellor," Vale replied calmly, "humanity was never invited to participate in these accords. We were deemed too backward to understand the implications." The alien delegates exchanged glances that needed no translation. Fear, pure, primal fear of what humanity had become. Chief Engineer Diana Ross approached the group, her young face showing the strain of the past few months. She had been the primary architect of the Nightfall's reality disruption systems, and Vale could see the weight of that responsibility in her eyes. "If I may," Ross addressed the assembly, "the Nightfall operates within the laws of physics. We simply apply quantum mechanics in ways that other species haven't explored." Ambassador Kelthera of the Void Whisperers stepped forward, her gaseous form shifting nervously. "Child of Earth, what you call quantum mechanics, we call the fundamental structure of existence. Your ship doesn't just bend these laws, it breaks them entirely." Vale felt the familiar surge of human defiance. For centuries, humanity had been told they were too young, too aggressive, too unpredictable to join the galactic community. Now, when they had finally created something that demanded respect, they were being judged by the very species that had excluded them. "Perhaps," Vale said quietly, "it's time the galaxy learned what happens when you corner a species that refuses to accept limitations." The silence that followed was broken only by the soft hum of the Nightfall's quantum processors, quietly reshaping probability itself around them. Chief Engineer Diana Ross led the alien delegation through the corridors of the Nightfall, her footsteps echoing against the strange metal that seemed to absorb sound just as it absorbed light. The delegates followed in uneasy silence, their various forms of breathing apparatus working overtime in what they clearly considered a hostile environment. "The quantum disruption matrix is housed in the ship's core," Ross explained, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. "Unlike conventional weapons that destroy matter, our system convinces the universe that the target matter never existed in stable form." High Chancellor Vorthak's scaled hands trembled slightly as he recorded her words. "You speak of convincing the universe itself. This is not technology. This is manipulation of the fundamental forces that hold reality together. Ross paused at a reinforced viewport that looked into the ship's heart. Beyond the transparent aluminum, a sphere of pure energy rotated slowly, surrounded by rings of exotic matter that pulsed with colors that had no names in any known language. 3 months ago, Ross continued, we encountered the Blood Talon, pirate confederation near the Kepler colonies. 47 ships, all armed with stolen military hardware. They had been raiding human settlements for 6 years. Ambassador Calthera's gaseous form shimmered with anxiety. We know of this incident. Our sensors detected anomalies, reality distortions that shouldn't be possible. Ross nodded grimly. Captain Vale gave them one warning to surrender. When they responded by opening fire on our escort vessels, we had no choice. The engineer activated a holographic display showing the battle. The alien delegates watched in horrified fascination as the pirate fleet appeared on screen, weapons blazing. Then Captain Vale's voice echoed through the recording. Nightfall actual to all vessels. Initiating quantum probability cascade. Stand clear. What happened next defied every law of physics the galactic community understood. The Nightfall's hull began to shimmer, and waves of distorted space rippled outward. As these waves touched each pirate vessel, the ships didn't explode or break apart. They simply faded from existence as if they were drawings being erased. 47 ships, Ross said quietly. 3,000 pirates, gone in 18 seconds. Not destroyed, erased from the quantum foundation of reality itself. The crystalline hegemony representative, a living mineral formation called Nexus Prime, resonated with a sound like breaking glass. This is abomination. Matter cannot simply cease to exist. Conservation of mass and energy doesn't apply when you're working at the quantum foam level, Ross interrupted. We're not destroying matter. We're retroactively preventing it from achieving stable existence in the first place. High Chancellor Vorthak stepped closer to the viewport, his reptilian features reflecting the strange light from the quantum core. Engineer Ross, do you understand what you have created? This technology could theoretically be used against planets, against entire star systems. Ross felt the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights in her response. Yes, we understand exactly what we've built. The question is, do you understand why we built it? The delegation exchanged glances filled with the kind of terror that came from facing something that challenged the very nature of existence. For 2 centuries, Ross continued, humanity has been the galaxy's punching bag. Too primitive to join your councils, too weak to demand respect, too isolated to matter. Well, we matter now. Ambassador Calthera's form pulsed with agitation. Child of Earth, there are weapons, and then there are violations of the cosmic order. What you have created crosses lines that should never be crossed. Ross turned back to the quantum core, watching the impossible energies that humanity had learned to harness. Maybe those lines needed to be crossed. The tension in the Nightfall's main conference chamber was thick enough to cut with a blade. Captain Marcus Vale stood at the head of the massive oval table, facing 12 alien representatives who looked like they were attending their own funeral. The ship's quantum core hummed beneath them, a constant reminder of the reality-bending power at humanity's disposal. Captain Vale, High Chancellor Vorthak began, his scaled fingers drumming nervously on the table surface. The Galactic Assembly demands a formal demonstration of your vessel's defensive capabilities. We must understand the full scope of what we're dealing with. Vale exchanged a glance with Chief Engineer Diana Ross, who nodded grimly from her position at the technical station. Very well. Lieutenant Morrison, are our sensors detecting any approaching vessels? Lieutenant James Morrison checked his displays, his face growing pale. Sir, we have incoming hostiles. Long-range scanners show a Raider coalition fleet, 36 vessels approaching from the Vega system. They appear to be armed for planetary assault. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Raider coalition was known throughout the galaxy as one of the most ruthless pirate organizations in existence. Their timing was either incredibly unfortunate or deliberately planned. Ambassador Kelthera's gaseous form flickered with concern. Captain, perhaps we should withdraw to a safe distance. The coalition has been known to attack diplomatic vessels. Vale's expression remained calm. With respect, Ambassador, you wanted a demonstration. It appears the universe is providing one. The Ponis main view screen activated, showing the approaching fleet. 36 massive warships, each bristling with weapons that could level cities. Their formation was perfect, their approach calculated for maximum destruction. These weren't desperate pirates, they were a military force. Incoming transmission from the lead vessel, Morrison reported. They're demanding our immediate surrender and the transfer of all alien delegates as prisoners. Nexus Prime, the crystalline hegemony representative, resonated with fear. This is madness. We must flee immediately. No single vessel can stand against such numbers. You're right, Vale agreed quietly. No conventional vessel could survive this encounter. He turned to Ross. Chief, prepare the probability cascade system. The alien delegates watched in fascination and terror as the ship began to change around them. The walls seemed to shimmer, and the very air began to vibrate, with energies that made their various sensory organs ache. Quantum field generators online, Ross reported. Reality anchor points established. Probability matrices locked onto hostile targets. The Raider Coalition fleet opened fire first. Hundreds of missiles and energy beams streaked toward the nightfall. Enough firepower to crack a moon in half. The alien delegates braced for impact, certain they were about to witness their own deaths. Instead, they watched impossibility unfold before their eyes. The weapons simply stopped existing. Not intercepted, not deflected. Erased from reality as if they had never been fired. The missiles vanished mid-flight, the energy beams dissolved into nothing, and the space around the nightfall remained perfectly clear. Phase 2, Vale ordered. Target the attacking vessels. What happened next would haunt the alien delegates for the rest of their lives. Waves of distorted spacetime rippled outward from the nightfall, washing over the Raider Coalition fleet, like an invisible tide. As each wave touched a vessel, that ship began to fade. It wasn't destruction in any sense the delegates understood. The ships didn't explode or break apart. They simply became less real, their edges growing fuzzy, their mass decreasing, their very existence being questioned by the universe itself. Within 60 seconds, 36 warships had been reduced to cosmic background radiation. Not a single shot had been fired by the nightfall in any conventional sense. High Chancellor Vorthak stared at the empty space where a fleet had existed, moments before. By the ancient stars, he whispered. What have you become? Captain Vale turned to face the stunned delegation. We've become what we needed to become to survive in a galaxy that refuses to let us live in peace. The silence that followed was broken only by the gentle hum of quantum processors returning to standby mode. Having just erased 3,000 lives from existence as casually as deleting files from a computer, the emergency session of the Galactic Assembly convened within hours of the Raider Coalition's erasure. Ambassador Jackson Rivers stood at the center of the circular chamber aboard, the neutral station Harmony Point, facing a tribunal of 12 species whose fear was almost tangible in the recycled air. High Chancellor Vorthak slammed his scaled fist on the podium. The demonstration we witnessed was nothing short of cosmic terrorism. Humanity has created a weapon that violates the fundamental laws that govern civilized space. Rivers, a weathered diplomat with silver hair and steel-gray eyes, remained calm despite the accusations flying around him like plasma bolts. Honorable delegates, before you condemn humanity for defending itself, perhaps you should examine why we felt compelled to create such defenses. He activated a holographic display that filled the chamber with images of burning human colonies. New Shanghai, population 4 million, wiped out by Vorthak raiders 3 years ago. The survivors, sold into slavery markets that your governments refused to shut down. The Zentari Chancellor's eyes narrowed. Those were rogue elements, not sanctioned military action. Rogue elements, Rivers repeated, his voice carrying decades of diplomatic frustration. Like the rogue elements that destroyed the agricultural station at Proxima 7, or the rogue elements that kidnapped 2,000 human children from the research outpost at Wolf 359. Ambassador Kelthera's gaseous form shimmered nervously. Those incidents were regrettable, but they do not justify the creation of reality-destroying weapons. Rivers stepped closer to the assembly, his presence commanding attention despite being the only human in a room full of beings that could crush him without effort. For 2 centuries, humanity has begged for protection under galactic law. We've requested membership in defense pacts, asked for trade agreements, pleaded for recognition as a sentient species worthy of basic rights. The holographic display shifted to show formal documents, hundreds of them. Treaties rejected, applications denied, requests for aid ignored. Each document bore the seals of the species now sitting in judgment. The Aquarian depths declared human colonies outside territorial concerns, Rivers continued. The crystalline hegemony classified Earth as a developing world not ready for galactic responsibility. The Void Whisperers voted to exclude humanity from the Non-Aggression Pact, claiming we were too primitive to understand the implications. Nexus Prime resonated with defensive frequencies. Humanity was young, inexperienced. We feared you would destabilize the careful balance we had maintained for millennia. Balance? Rivers' voice rose for the first time. What balance? The balance where human merchant vessels are fair game? For any pirate with faster-than-light capability? The balance where human distress calls are ignored by species that swore oaths to the Galactic Rescue Protocols? He pulled up another set of files. 17 formal complaints filed with the Galactic Justice Tribunal. 17 requests for investigation into attacks on human civilian targets. Care to guess how many received even a preliminary hearing? The silence was answer enough. 0, Rivers said quietly. Not one. Because according to galactic law, humanity doesn't exist. We're not a recognized civilization, so crimes against us aren't technically crimes at all. An unexpected voice broke the tension. Representative Thyler of the Nomadic Swarms, a insectoid, being whose species rarely spoke in assembly sessions, clicked forward. The human speaks truth. My people have witnessed the systematic exclusion of Earth's children from protection protocols. The statement sent shockwaves through the chamber. The nomadic swarms were known for their strict neutrality and absolute honesty. We created the Nightfall, Rivers continued, because the galaxy taught us that the only way to earn respect is through fear. You wouldn't listen to our diplomats, so now you'll listen to our weapons. High Chancellor Vorthak's voice carried a dangerous edge. And if we don't? If we declare your vessel an existential threat and unite to destroy it? Rivers smiled, and for the first time since entering the chamber, he looked genuinely dangerous. Then you'll discover why humanity built 12 more ships just like it, and why they're currently positioned around every major galactic trade route. The revelation hit the assembly like a quantum cascade wave. 12 more Nightfall-class vessels. 12 more reality erasers commanded by a species that had been pushed to the breaking point. You wanted us to understand the implications of advanced technology, Rivers said. Well, we understand perfectly. The implications are simple. Respect us or be erased from existence. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of life support systems working overtime to process the fear-saturated atmosphere. The Galactic Assembly Chamber had never witnessed such chaos. 12 species representatives argued in overlapping languages, while emergency communications flooded in from across the galaxy. The discovery of humanity's fleet of reality erasers had sent shockwaves through every major civilization. Ambassador Jackson Rivers stood calmly at the center of the storm, watching as the galaxy's most powerful beings realized they were no longer the apex predators they had believed themselves to be. High Chancellor Vorthak called for order, his scaled hands shaking as he gripped the ceremonial gavel. The Assembly recognizes that we face an unprecedented situation. Humanity has fundamentally altered the balance of power in known space. Representative Thyler of the Nomadic Swarms clicked forward, her insectoid form bristling with determination. The question before us is not whether humanity's actions were justified. They clearly were. The question is what happens next. Ambassador. Kelthera's gaseous form pulsed with agitation. What happens next? We're facing species extinction. If humanity decides we're a threat, they could erase entire civilizations from existence. Just as you've been erasing us for centuries, Rivers replied quietly. The only difference is that we're efficient about it. Nexus Prime resonated with frequencies that translated as desperation. There must be a solution that doesn't involve mutual annihilation, some form of accommodation. The chamber fell silent as Captain Marcus Vale's image appeared on the main communication screen. He was standing on the bridge of the Nightfall, and behind him, the alien delegates who had witnessed the demonstration looked pale and shaken. Honorable Assembly, Vale began, his voice carrying across space with crystal clarity. I've been monitoring your deliberations. I believe it's time for humanity to make our position clear. High Chancellor Vorthak leaned forward. Captain, speak plainly. What does humanity want? Vale's expression was granite hard. Recognition, full membership in the Galactic Assembly, protection under all existing treaties and accords, the immediate establishment of no attack zones around all human colonies and trade routes. And in return? Vorthak asked, though everyone in the chamber already knew the answer. In return, humanity agrees to limitation protocols on quantum disruption technology. We'll maintain our defensive capabilities, but we won't expand the fleet beyond its current numbers. The offer sent murmurs rippling through the assembly. It was more generous than anyone had expected, but still carried the implicit threat of omnicide. Representative Thyler stepped forward again. I move for immediate ratification of the human accords. My people will sponsor Earth's application for full assembly membership. One by one, other representatives began to voice their agreement. Not out of friendship or respect, but out of the most primal emotion in the galaxy: fear. High Chancellor Vorthak raised the ceremonial gavel, his voice heavy with the weight of history. By unanimous vote of the Galactic Assembly, humanity is hereby granted full recognition as a sovereign interstellar civilization. The human accords are ratified, establishing Earth and all human colonies as protected territories under galactic law. The gavel fell with a sound that echoed across the chamber like a quantum cascade wave. Captain Vale nodded once. The Nightfall fleet acknowledges the Assembly's decision. We look forward to a peaceful coexistence with our galactic neighbors. As the transmission ended, Ambassador Rivers allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had finally achieved what centuries of diplomacy had failed to accomplish. Not through reason or negotiation, but through the simple demonstration that they were too dangerous to ignore. The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth that day. Sometimes the only way to gain a seat at the table is to prove you can erase the table from existence. In the depths of space, 12 Nightfall-class vessels powered down their quantum cores and assumed peaceful patrol orbits. The galaxy's newest members had taken their place among the stars, not as supplicants begging for recognition, but as equals who demanded respect. The age of humanity's exclusion was over. The age of humanity's influence had begun. And somewhere, in the quantum foam that underlied reality itself, the universe quietly adjusted its fundamental constants to accommodate the presence of beings who had learned to rewrite the rules of existence itself.